Yeah,
All right, good morning. Zach, how we doing? Happy Friday, man.
yeah, happy Friday. We're doing pretty well. I mean, we got wild card, stress-free wild card weekend, which is very nice.
And it was so much so that I don't even want to break down the potential Ravens opponents. There's four of them. We'll figure it out Sunday around what 4:30. Maybe the Bills
Yeah,
push them off early. We'll see what happens. But yeah, there's so much going on. I want to start with Zach is last week. If anybody didn't listen and you're just tuning in, I encourage you to listen to last week. I basically, wanted to get to the bottom of who Zach is, how he got here, and I thought that it was pretty insightful. So hopefully you guys do the same. But the main reason that Zach is so passionate about everything is Orioles, Ravens fan, and I turn to Zach for news. Like
mhm,
sometimes I want opinions, but first I need the news. I need to understand what's going on before I can even develop an opinion. And baseball is more complicated. So we're gonna start with baseball, and then we'll go into some
yeah,
of the coaching. But baseball, I'm a little confused. Like I understand what I'm reading, but I need a little bit more context. So why don't you just, if you don't mind, what did the Orioles do yesterday? Kind of sum it up for everybody and explain what the heck is next and what
yeah,
does filtration even mean, if you don't mind.
yeah. So pretty much the MLB. It's so funny. I was talking with Steve Johnson, who was a reliever for the Orioles for
Yeah.
a few years, played with the Mariners, and it was about a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the MLB contracts, and I was like, so I'm sure you completely, you understand how it all works by this point and all that. And he was like, no, I'm going to be honest. He was like, I did it for 5 years and I would still be asking my agent, like, wait, so what am I after this year? Like, am I a free agent? Is it arbitration? What is it? So it is okay to be confused because even the players are confused at a lot of the times with this stuff. So pretty much the way the MLB works because rookie contracts are so long, it's not like the NFL where after 4 years these guys hit free agency. In a lot of cases, it's 7, 8 years down the line. So after 4 years, you enter your arbitration years, which pretty much means that before yesterday it was, I believe, 1 o'clock deadline each year you have to agree on your salary for for that following year with the team. And
Let me stop you right there. So the players yesterday,
yeah.
run through who they were real quick.
So the big ones that or the ones that were out there, so
Give me
we
one.
had
Mullen.
Danny, yeah. Yeah, so we had Danny Coulomb, Austin Hayes, Cole Irvin, John Means, Ryan Mountcastle, Cedric Mullins, Ryan O'Hearn, Cionel Perez, Anthony Santander, Dylan Tate, Ramon Urias, Jacob Webb, and Tyler Wells.
So the
And
whole so in
a majority of the team.
so
Majority of the team.
is there a situation where we could have offered those guys multi-year deals and they turned
Yes.
it down?
Yeah, so you can offer guys, you have the opportunity to offer extensions. So that's where,
Is there
if the team wanted to extend Santander, they could do that and just buy out his arbitration year. So that's actually where a lot of these younger guys that are signing these big contracts, it's actually in theory what they're
so
doing
why
is they're
didn't we do 3 years, 26 million, 4 years, 20, like why didn't we do that for any of these guys? Is that a sign that they're only here for one more year? Are we being cheap? What are we doing?
no, it's extremely common. For the majority, that's what you're gonna do because it's kind of like these guys are still earlier in their career and these teams want a better deal. So if a guy regresses or whatever, they can then take that into account in their salary the next year. So unless if it's a superstar guy like an Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson in a few years where the Orioles are like, hey, it's gonna be cheaper for us to
God,
give them 150 million now than deal with in 4 years. Suddenly, Gunners numbers are coming to us with, "Hey, we want 50 million this
that's
final
what,
year."
and that's what the Braves did with Acuna, right?
Yes, that's what they've done with Acuna, and you see a lot of these guys. It's why the new trend is these top prospects getting signed before they even come to the majors. Is these teams are like, "Hey, we'll take the risk and give you $100 million for the 8 years of what you would have throughout arbitration and everything. But we're hoping that in the years that we would have had to pay you in arbitration $30 million, we are only paying you 18 because of this deal. So
So,
it's kind of that's the game that these teams try to play right now.
so the five Orioles that did not agree yesterday: Jacob Webb,
Yeah,
Cole O'Hearn,
yeah,
Hayes, and Hayes and Paris.
yeah.
Excuse me. Um, you can look and see the difference. It's not very much money. Are they going to like? What's the insight here? Why didn't they come to an agreement? Are they going to come to an agreement? Normally,
Yeah, they're gonna. So what happens now is it goes to the awkward part of arbitration where they've now exchanged figures officially at 8 p.m. last night, and we have them. Perez. So Webb filed for 925,000 or for $1 million, as the Orioles did for $925,000. So that 750,000 they're going to meet somewhere in the middle, but there will now be a judge arbitrator that comes in, looks at everything, hears both sides' arguments, and that's where it's awkward
got it.
because now as the team, you're kind of in court arguing why your player deserves less money. And it's like, well, actually, he's not that great against lefties. And it's like, okay, that's awkward, hurtful. And it's like, so it is awkward in that sense, because the player's like, I deserve this money. And then
So
the
then,
team,
so then the arbitrator says this is the number, and then the team and the player have a chance to say yes or no at that point, or do they?
yeah, so then pretty much that's what the contract is. Whatever the arbitrator decides, that's what, happens after. And that's why baseball is so weird. Like you see guys like I think Ryan Mountcastle this year, he's been in the league for 4 years and his total earnings up until this year was like $3.4 million, and now he's got 4.3 this year. So it's like, sometimes these guys take massive leaps in arbitration years.
So the Orioles, the ownership of the Orioles is a popular conversation. The reason why it's not a popular conversation for me is because
Mhm.
I feel like I don't have enough information. It always feels secondhand information.
Yeah,
Not that people don't do a great job reporting, but the Angelos family is just notoriously quiet, and
yeah.
I'd like to hear their side of things. So, can you
Mm.
make the argument? Because I know the popular thing is, God, we're so freaking cheap. Of course, we have five players out of the 23, I think, that are eligible. So, if you could, not to be a mouthpiece for them, but what's the argument? Like, why do the Orioles have a bunch of players? Is it simply because we're cheap, or is there another?
Um,
Is there a different?
it all comes down to arbitration is just every team's going to have guys that don't sign. I think actually Jeff Passan released a thing of each team's players that didn't reach deals on arbitration. And it's kind of just a year to year. I don't. It is a norm, so I wouldn't say it's a massive deal. It's not because the Orioles are cheap or the Angeloses are cheap. Every team is going to have their differences with players. It's you know as much as we can call Angelos cheap, if you just gave the players what they wanted every time, you would be spending a lot of money on not so great talent.
And
So
I was going to make the argument that they're his partners. Like that's where it comes down to. Like it's
yeah,
all of them. Yeah, it's business. It's labor
yeah.
versus ownership. So you have to
And
understand.
at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think Angelos is the one in there saying, no, we can't sign Jacob Webb to more than this deal. I think that's the guys like Elias and Sig looking at it and going, okay, after all our metrics and everything that we run, this is what we're saying you're worth. And then Jacob Webb, Danny Coulomb, Ryan O'Hearn, those guys are going, well, I think I'm worth this much. Which one I will say, Ryan O'Hearn, they were, I think, only 200,000 apart, but I thought he was going to get a lot more. I thought he would get like $5 million. I think he was only around where'd he come in? 3.2, or he offered 3.8. He's getting offered 3.2. I thought he'd be around 5 million.
So the
So
game. So we'll have plenty of time to do this, but let's wrap up
yeah.
Orioles with the game plan is to trade an established outfielder for a starting pitcher. Like you can't get Kowser and Kerstead
Yeah, it's
In
they're
Holland,
they're either gonna have to trade one of these guys, like maybe it's now in Austin Hayes with the arbitration stuff going on. Maybe they do agree to agree with him and then trade him. I could also see if they're getting a long-term pitcher in a trade. I could see them. I don't think they want to give up a Cowser. I don't see them ever giving up
no, I'm
Kerstead.
saying they want to get Cowser or Kershaw on the lineup, then they have
Well,
to.
I'm saying I think that it's a one or the other. I think if they opt for if they like Hayes out there, I could see them trading a Cowser to then get a pitcher and then keeping Kerstead as your guy, or vice versa, trading, like you've pointed out, a Hayes for an established pitcher as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle the outfield situation because while it's a great problem to have, having 7 guys to play 3 positions is not great right now.
Yeah, and the infielders that we're looking at aren't really platoon to play. I don't know if
Yeah,
Holiday can play left field. I don't think they really want to do that. I
no,
think Westberg probably could. So that's an interesting
yeah.
thing. But anyway, we'll have plenty.
Oh, yeah.
Geez, you know what? I go back to Baltimore for a couple weeks. I get this cold. Like the
Yeah, there's a cold oh my god, yeah, no, I've been fighting a cold for, I feel like 3 weeks at this point. It's just something's going around, and I feel like everyone I meet is either just coming off of a cold or they're just starting a cold, and it's like it's just that fantastic post-holiday time of year.
All right, so let's do coaching. Let's do. I was thinking about what was going to be interesting because the Belichick thing is interesting, but we need like years to talk about this. Like, there's,
Oh my
but
god.
we'll do Belichick another time. Mayo is now the coach. We're recording this 8:30 in the morning. Mayo is the coach.
Yeah,
Told me that a few minutes ago before we even started. So that's kind of the New England situation deserves maybe its own podcast. Pete Carroll is so underrated. He deserves his
mm.
like basically what I came up with was Pete Carroll, Saban, and Belichick each deserved maybe their own podcast. We'll have plenty of time for it. I
I saw someone say that they need Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, just a sit down podcast of those 2 weekly, just giving their unfiltered opinion on what's going on in the NCAA and,
yeah.
NFL, and I think that would be number 1 podcast of all time.
Well, I wonder if they would start where I would like to start with you because I don't like saying that people are stupid. It feels like that's just like a lame argument, like, oh, they're just
Yeah.
dumb. But are the Titans just dumb? Like, so can we recap what's
Yeah.
happened with the Titans here and tell me if I'm missing something?
Mhm.
Um, they peak by making the playoffs back-to-back years, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
1 year beating us, 1 year losing to us, correct?
Yep.
And
Yep.
that draft, one draft day, without telling their coach, who by all accounts at this point is a top 5, top 10 coach. Hey,
Mhm.
we're gonna trade. Our quarterback sucks. We know the quarterback sucks. He's never been good. We have this really great weapon on a rookie contract. We're going to trade him. We're not going to
Yep.
tell you about it. We're just going to draft his replacement, Traylon Burks, who
Yeah.
no
Who just every unfortunately, Treylon Burks every other day, one of my best friends is a Titans fan, and he's just one of those guys where it's like, "Oh, okay, Treylon had a good game," and then the next day it's like, "Yeah, he tweaked his, like, pinky toe, he's gonna be out for, like, 3 weeks." It's like, how?"
might been AJ Brown.
Yeah.
We'll say that, right? So Titans make that decision. Last year, he's got Josh Dobbs in. Excuse me, Jesus.
Yeah,
And
Josh Dobbs in a winner take home game, which is,
so they barely lose that game, but they lose.
yeah.
Whatever. Then this year, okay, they're not having a great year. They decide not to trade Derrick Henry. They seem to potentially have the quarterback for the future. Then they fire him. I thought he wanted to get fired because he was going to be the Patriots coach. Find out that's not the case. I feel like the Titans are a victim of somebody just didn't like Vrabel that was close to the owner. And what the hell are they doing? Am I missing something? And where does Vrabel end up? Because I think he is the best coach,
Mhm.
better than Harbaugh, better than Belichick, because you're going to get him for 15 years. And it
Yeah.
just feels crazy to me that the Titans let him go. But I wanted your
Yeah, I am on the exact same page. I think this is a complete and total botch moment by the Titans. I think they had things in place that were going very well, and they have just completely thrown it all away. I mean, not only the fact that you've taken a quarterback in the third and second round back to back years, and you still aren't really sure who your quarterback is. I mean, yes, you like Will Levis, but now you fire your coach that was, helping develop him. So it doesn't make sense to me. Now, does a new coach come in and say, hey, I want a quarterback, another quarterback? Are you going to go a third year of drafting a quarterback in the draft? There's so many questions now. And it feels like there was a complete disconnect. And from what people, is being reported, there was a disconnect. It just was not going well with communication between Vrabel and I guess the new GMs and the owners, and things were just not going well at the end.
So the owner released a statement. I forget her name now, but I think it's Amy Adams.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's
released
Amy. Yeah.
she released a statement essentially endorsing Will Levis. So they'll bring
Mhm.
in some offensive coordinator who apparently will, I don't know what he's going to do, but that's what they'll do. They'll bring in somebody that they can control that will, I shouldn't say it like that, but you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
the ownership there seems to be in control. And it led me to wanting to just, I did this a couple podcasts ago, but we're going to do it again because the Ravens organization, not only has it been easy to root for because we're very successful, but
Mhm.
it's such a stable organization. They play hard, and they
Yeah.
decided to give somebody like as a coach, you have to. It takes time to do things.
Mhm.
Now for Harbaugh, he was able to win right away, which was a blessing.
Yeah.
Easier. But the fact that he's been able to create his own culture, I know you're big on it. You just posted the Dalvin Cook thing the other day. What do you think is the main connection, if you will, that because it started off with like Harbaugh's a tough ass. He's kind of like his brother. Jared Johnson went
Yeah.
later on. That story always jumps out at me. He doesn't get a lot of credit for the defense.
Mhm.
That led us to the Super Bowl, and then he doesn't get credit for the Flacco because he's not the offensive play caller. So, what do you
Yeah.
think the players? What do you think it is? Is it just stuff that we really just don't know? I know you talked about Nick Moore,
Yeah.
but go ahead. What do you think?
I I think the funny thing is, like, it is really does feel like we've seen two sides of this Harbaugh story. Originally it was Harbaugh's, egotistical. He's all this stuff. Players hate playing with him. His energy, all this stuff. And then in this, like, the past 10 years, it's completely shifted. Or I guess I should say past like 8 years. It shifted and now it's Harbaugh's the best coach. Clowney and Dalvin Cook both have said in their early press conferences, I wanted to come play for Harbaugh. And guys like Nick Moore, they've talked about with me that it's the intensity. And there's, at 6 a.m. at lifting, Harbaugh's the first guy in there with them. So he's going to match their energy at all time. We've seen in these Ravens Wired post game interviews where Harbaugh is just going nuts with the guys. He has this energy about him. He seems to be very caring towards the players, almost as like a father figure. So I think that is really grabbed their attention because he's holds them accountable. He matches their energy, but is also caring enough to be like, okay, I know how each person needs to be motivated. And that's what he's great at, is getting the whole team unified together.
I would be curious to get him to talk about it because
Mhm.
I don't know this to be true. I just know for things that I've heard in locker room speeches and him talk, but everything seems to be faith based.
Yeah.
That allows a wide group of people to buy into the same message.
Hmm.
A lot of times even if you don't believe as much as the person that's preaching, it makes you feel better to be around somebody that does believe. um,
Hmm.
just not being controversial, and it doesn't matter what you really believe in. Somebody said
Yeah.
that to me when I always like to push back. I was always like the why. Well, why should we do this?
Yeah.
Why should we do this? Why? And eventually what gave me peace is you'll never know the answer anyway, so you may as well pick something to believe in. And for
That is.
super curious people, you're not going to get satisfied during the
Yeah.
religion like rabbit hole, right? Like, what religion do I belong to, and why does this religion believe?
Yeah.
But having a message that health is the most important, family is the most important, and driving that home with, instead of a bunch of typical coaching things that I think players like Robert Saleh was doing during Hard Knocks, where it's like, what was he doing? Like the Hornet, what was he? The Eagles fly. People, it was
Yeah.
right. I think
Yeah.
Marvel stays away from some of that crap and just goes straight to, hey, don't we all have kids basically, or we at least all
Mm.
have parents? We at least have brothers or sisters, and the energy. I hate to be. I hate to add the pressure. That's why I want to play the Steelers. That's how.
Yeah.
So I I don't want us to be anxious, and the only way I feel like we won't be anxious out of the four opponents is if we play the Steelers. The Dolphins, maybe, or the Dolphins. I don't know if we'll be anxious because, but they're going to be. They have that proverbial chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I don't wanna the 2 teams I wanna play are the Steelers, or I actually wanna play the Texans
I
because
was
I
gonna say the
think
Texans though would come in there with the absolutely nothing to lose, back to back playoff wins. They'll be
yeah.
10-point underdog. It'll feel like the Titans game. You know it will. That's just exactly.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, without a doubt it will, but I think I like the thought of a rookie quarterback and a rookie head
He's a
coach
rookie
having to come
quarterback.
into
We're sure he's a rookie quarterback. He was so
Yeah, you
good
make
last week. I mean, I'm sorry, but
yeah,
the Texans have no like last week. I'm like looking
yeah,
at the inactives. It's like, okay, so they got Nico Collins, which he's great, but the Colts are gonna, I guess, besides the first play, you would think double
yeah.
team, but he needs
Yeah, I don't know what
everything.
happened there. They one time they forget to cover him, and then the rest of the game, they just were like, "Okay, we'll shut him down now." It's like,
I
"Okay."
feel like after 3 months of knowing you now and doing this is the most like angry and disagreeable I've been that you somehow. I do not want CJ Stroud anywhere near the
I
stadium.
just I think I get in that aspect, but I just think that if there was just that atmosphere, I think we would do well. I think Roquan and that defense could get in the rookie's head.
So you got
Although I will say it does suck that we played him week 1 because I would have preferred it be the first time that he'd seen our defense, so that would be a disadvantage, but
it is pretty cool that the way it shaped out feels like it was meant to be because the Chiefs and the Bill, like we earned the right to not have to play the Chiefs or the Bills to
yeah.
the final
At
meeting.
least the AFC Championship, and that it like you said, it feels right. It feels like that's how it should be if you got the 1 seed. You don't have to play those 2 teams.
All right, well, this was great. There's so much, like I said, I think that what we'll do because during the off season, the Pete Carroll, I have so many things. They did so much for coaching. Saban did, Belichick
Yeah.
did, Carroll did. The NIL stuff is interesting. Your generation, and then the kids as you're getting older, people younger than
Yeah.
you. Like I think you'll be able to really help. I don't date myself here, but I got 10 years on you. I would like you to help people understand that
Mm.
what is happening in college sports and how it's
Yeah.
impacting people and different stories. And I'm sure you have friends that played
Yeah.
sports or at least anyway. It'll be fun to talk about. But next week, obviously, we'll break down who the Ravens end up playing. I am not willing to even talk about. Notice that I didn't even talk about the other potential opponent because
Yeah. I refuse. I just don't want it to happen. I
I
just
really don't want it to happen. I'm gonna root for the Texans. The only thing
yeah.
is that guy Miles Garrett feels like he takes up a half of the field. Like I honestly don't even care about playing their offense. I'm
Yeah.
more concerned about Miles Garrett and him disrupting everything. So we'll see if the Browns can figure out how to beat the Texans. We got Dolphins Chiefs, Steelers
Yeah.
Bills. You
Yeah, Dolphins, Chiefs in negative 40-degree weather or whatever it's supposed to be at this point. It's
It feels
just
too easy. Like everyone, I don't like that when everyone likes the Chiefs. Like you can't find anybody to take the Dolphins.
I know. It's
Um,
scary. It's scary. That's gonna be I feel like that's gonna be a crappy, low-scoring game in the cold.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna
Mhm.
let you run. Great. We'll break down Ravens. Thank you for the Orioles stuff. We'll see what happens, but
Yeah.
honestly, if they run it back with adding Jackson Holiday for Adam Frazier, like if that's the trade that they made, um,
Yeah, I mean, there are worse trades out there if you're thinking about it. If you look at it as Adam Frazier for Jackson Holiday on the major league roster, There are a lot worse things you could do.
And actually, I want to say one more thing before we go because it just kind of hit me, and I wanted your thoughts on it because I was thinking about this morning and I was going through the roster and I'm like, you know what? They're not sold yet. You don't know who could be an all-star pitcher. Like,
Mhm.
we're not sure that Bradish is the best pitcher. It could still
Yeah.
be Grayson. It could be Kramer. They get brought back Means. They still got Povich and McDermott.
Yeah. I still think Grayson's the best pitcher in the
But I'm
group.
But and what I'm saying is, and they still have Tyler Wells. It's not going to shock me, and I if they just don't do anything. I know
No.
we had to come up with content last time, and it's like I know Dylan Cease is a popular choice, but the more I
Yeah.
just keep thinking about it, I don't know. I feel like they're going to run it back with the intention of making the trade at the deadline because
Yeah.
in that way they'll have way more data on the minor league players. So a
Mhm.
lot of
They'll know who they have better.
right, and then I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I don't know if did you look at the schedule yet for April?
Oh, yeah, it's not gonna be April? No. What is,
No, it's like easy. Like I shouldn't say easy, but easy. Like easy. Like
oh,
Pirates easy, Royals twice, the Athletics in there. Like I think the Orioles are going to be in the position where they're right in the thick of things.
yeah.
Just like last year, except this year they can do the big trade. But I just don't
Mhm.
see it happening now. The more I think about it in the next few weeks, I just
Yeah, if I think if there was gonna be a blockbuster trade, I think we might have seen it already, but I agree. I think Mike Elias and them have a standard and a bar for what they're willing to give up for each player, and if it's not there until the trade deadline, I think they're willing to wait it out just as much as the other team.
and they don't want to trade, like we said. You want to know more about what you have about six or
Mhm.
seven of these minor league players. You don't need to trade the best player in baseball and not
Yeah.
know it. And for all we know, the best player might not be Gunnar, Adley, or Jackson Holiday. It could be like they have another five or six. The catcher,
Yeah.
Vasily, was showing me film on him. I'm like, like,
Yeah.
who's this guy? So they have so
Yeah, Basayo's gonna be I think Basayo could be the
Did I
top
call
pitcher
him
in
Vasilla?
baseball.
That's great. That's nice. What's his name?
Basayo. I did the same thing for a while. Yeah. And I'm still only 90% sure I'm right on that pronunciation. It's like I've changed it 7 times just off of what I hear on TV, and it's just like so the most recent I've heard is Basayo.
All right, well, perfect. Well, enjoy the calm before the storm. You got
Yeah.
another 2 or 3 days to relax yourself before
Yeah.
you'll be doing nonstop content, getting us.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Thanks, Zach. I'll see you
Hey,
next week.
yeah, see you next week.
I say bye.